down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tog tips, and image reviews to help you improve your photography. Here's your host, Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, thanks for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. In fact, number 56 to be exact. So it's great to see all of you here on a Monday night. It is a photo review night, so we have got some really cool and some really interesting pictures to look at tonight. And something a little bit different, we have a guest. Well, a recorded guest, but it's somebody that a lot of you know of and admire his work. You have seen him commenting and participating in my group, and he's even been here in the chat on some of our live feeds, and that is Chicago's own Manny Ortiz. I have an interview for you that I did with Manny that's kind of a Joe interview that's about the hows and the whys behind Manny's work and what he does. And of course, it is great to see so many people here tonight. We've got people here from Germany, Ontario, James Brown, Purple Poison's here, Hector's here, Mitch, Tom W., Matt, Doreen's here, James Parrish, Matthew's here from Canada, Marcel also from Canada, Doug Thompson's here, Carl's here, Tony's here, Doreen, lots of people. I really, really appreciate it. I haven't seen Troy though. Somebody better call Troy and tell him it's Monday night because I think he's like goofing off or something. I don't know what's up with that. So anyway, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for checking in. We're going to try some different things tonight. Hopefully give you some new experiences. And remember, TogChat, 3 nights a week. So Monday night tonight is the photo review night where we're going to look at some photos. We're going to do some reviews. We're going to see an interview with Manny Ortiz. Wednesday night is the Q&A night. So Wednesday night is your questions, my answers, or at least I do my best to answer them and give you resources that will help you out. And then of course, Thursday night is the marketing night where we'll be back to talk about a photographer's website and go through their website design, how impactful their marketing is, their social media, all that good stuff. So before I jump in, remember, if you would like to have your photograph reviewed here on TogChat on a Monday night, there is 2 ways that you can do it. One, there is a link. If you're one of those folks that doesn't like Facebook, there's a link in the description right below the video that is tog.chat/photo review. So all you need to do is click that link and you'll be able to answer a couple questions, and then from there, go ahead and upload your photograph. The better way to do it is to join my Facebook group. And I gotta tell you, if you're not a member of my Facebook group yet, you're missing out. My buddy Chad's gonna post the link to the Facebook group in the chat window, so you should go check it out if you're not a member. All I'm gonna tell you for right now is it is not your normal Facebook group. So please, go check it out. If you're on Facebook, I promise you, it's a great learning experience. It's very different than what you're accustomed to when it comes to Facebook photography groups. I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, so we're gonna dive right in with our first picture that we have here. And this shot comes to us all the way from Madison, Wisconsin. Photographer Brett Anderson. So you can see all the camera stats up there in the upper left-hand corner of the screen where my mouse is circling around them right now, okay? So the background information that Brett gave me about this shot, and this was a shot that he posted in my Facebook group, and I'll tip you off, he's also been kind enough to provide us with a behind-the-scenes shot so we can see his lighting arrangement. So this was a picture he did for his son. It was his first year of Little League, and he wanted to create a dramatic sports portrait of his son in uniform, but ultimately something that his son would be proud to show his friends, which is cool dad points right there, like totally. So he's done some low-key portraits before, you know, dark, moody, dramatic, but this was the first time that he had a chance to work with gel. So it was a learning opportunity all the way around. He's got a small studio space in his basement. It's about 12 foot by 10 feet. And he's been using that space to practice for, you know, doing like product photography and also some portrait works when his family will participate as subjects. He is using the Paul C. Buff Digibees, the 800s, which I just recently switched over to and must say I've been really happy with them so far. Not only because they are super, super simple to use, but also the fact that the modeling lights in them are LED lights. They're 400 watt equivalents, which means they're really bright. So they also double as video lights, which is wonderful. So he lit this with a 22-inch beauty dish that's got the diffusion cover or sock placed over the front of it, and he's got rim lights with both an orange on camera left and a blue gel on camera right. Pretty much the way he did this was to build his light setup. He set his lights and then started making adjustments as he did test shots to vary the power until he got to the mix that he was happy with. Overall, he's happy with the result. The dark shirt is still separated from the background, which you guys have heard me talk about that a lot. Somewhere along the lines these days, it seems that photographers read it in a book or they're being told, must have separation from subject and background. And the fact is, you don't always have to have separation. Sometimes it completely makes sense, but it's not a hard, fast rule. So in this case, I'll tell you right out of the box, Brett, you did a great job. I don't think that you need any more separation at all. So his post-processing, he basically did it in Lightroom, and really all he had to do was just boost the clarity on this shot to get the effect that he wanted. So he was happy that the dark shirt separated. He also found it a lot of fun to see the very serious expression on his 10-year-old son. And the lighting is definitely different than what a lot of people are posting, especially what a lot of kids are posting on their social media from, their baseball pictures. So if he could do anything differently, he would add a fill light on the bottom, maybe just to brighten the face up a little bit. He thinks the eyes are a little too dark. He'd also like to turn him just a little bit more so that you can read all of the Little League team name. I think for a lot of us, that's not really an issue. In Brett's case and in the case of his son, that name is kind of important to them. So in that scenario, it might be nice to have, the full name there. But definitely for the rest of us, I don't think that you lose anything at all by not seeing the full name, simply because between the bat, the baseball cap, and the jersey, is clearly a baseball player. So I don't think that that's a particularly major problem. Also, he'd like to have a little bit more depth of field, he liked the depth that the bat provides, but he's a little afraid that if he turns his son more, he'll lose that depth. So it's that kind of balance of, well, it'd be nice to see the whole logo, but indeed, if you start to turn the subject more to camera, then you've just got this long horizontal line, so you lose that kind of diagonal. And then the last thing that he's a little bit concerned with, he thinks that the blue light that's kind of hitting his son's nose might be a little bit hot, maybe a bit distracting, but for him, it's not a deal breaker. So, I would say overall, Brett, number one, congratulations. I think you did a great job here. Number two, let's talk about the things that you discussed in terms of things that you would like to change. As far as the fill, I think you lose a lot of the impact on this shot if you add the fill. So I'm not saying, so please just so that people don't misquote me or turn this into a Joe likes this or Joe hates this, okay? I find overall, and this is not the case for Brett, but that reflector thought process is, I find that a lot of photographers, young/new photographers, are turning to beauty dishes because they're supposed to be this cool, upscale light source. But then they're realizing the light from the beauty dish is a bit harsh. So what they're doing is they're adding all kinds of reflectors in. By the time you add the reflectors into the beauty dish, essentially what you're doing is you're creating a lighting equivalent of a softbox. So why not use a softbox in the first place? Beauty dishes are going to give you quicker fall off, more dramatic light. That's why you use them. So, I have to be honest, Brett, I don't think it would ruin your shot, but I do think it would take a lot of the mood away. I like the fall off. I like the shadow underneath his chin. I love the fact that his face is turned just enough that you're getting that orange glow coming right down the jawline. Very, very powerful. I think, honestly, if I would have done anything different with your lighting here, two things. One is definitely different. The one is a Joe thing. So the definitely different, I don't have a problem with the blue hitting his nose, but I do wish your blue was dialed down, like I'm talking maybe a half a stop, just a fraction. And Brett, I'm being really picky at this point and really kind of trying to push you to the next level. I think if you do that, your objection or your concern about the blue on the nose also kind of starts to go away and dissipates. The other thing that's the Joe thing that I would do, ever so slightly bring his face back to the camera. So it's not that he's got to be looking straight into the camera, but I would bring him back ever so slightly just to get a little bit more impact out of his left eye, which is camera right. And I think that you will find that that will be quite a bit stronger also, because it's going to get, especially with that serious expression that he's doing, which of course you're not used to seeing that from, a 10-year-old. I think that that's going to give you even more impact yet. But overall, I love the fact that the hat's, pushed up and back a little bit. I think you really did a great job. And as far as the angle on the bat, so I've already given you my thoughts on the shirt logo. That, like I mentioned, that's going to have a lot more meaning to you than it is to anyone else that looks at your picture. So I assure you, in terms of using that picture, from a portfolio standpoint, don't sweat that logo at all. In fact, the idea that we see the words Little League, it's perfect. We don't need to see the whole logo. As far as the angle on the bat, I do like having the bat slightly angled. I think if everything was square to the camera, what you wind up with is a scenario where it's a little too predictable and kind of a little too almost pedestrian. It's a little too boring. It doesn't bother me that we've got the kind of shallow depth of field and that hand is soft. Sadly, it wouldn't surprise me if some people look at that and say, oh, you should have used more depth of field and that hand should have been in focus. No, it doesn't need to be in focus at all. In fact, you did the right thing by having this hand pretty crisp, his face crisp, and letting the fall off back there. I would have been able to forgive you even if this hand was as soft as this hand. Would not have bothered me in the least, but I think that you made all the right choices. One of the things that you might try, Brett, and don't forget, guys, I have the behind-the-scenes lighting set up, which I'll show you in just a second. One of the things that you might try and consider is to play around, and this is, of course, I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed now that I'm gonna say this, that you have Photoshop, because you mentioned you did all your work in Lightroom. So if you're using the Creative Cloud, you have access to Photoshop. This is the perfect kind of shot to practice some masking and adding some texture to the background. So obviously, and I want to switch over to Brett's behind the scenes shot here. So here's his behind the scenes shot. So he's got a nice, simple, kind of studio setup put together in his basement. In fact, I see we've got that Manfrotto boom arm, or maybe it's the Impact boom arm. We've got the boom arm up there holding the beauty dish. There's the strobes with the gels. So all that is, awesome in terms of the way it's set up. What you might want to try doing from the standpoint of post-production, though, Brett, is finding a cool texture. Like, honestly, for me, what comes to mind when I see this, and a lot of you are going to think, why would you do that? So if Brett is willing to share his raw file with me, and Brett, you can reach out to me by the Facebook group to do this, and I'll give you the information of how to upload it. And I'll gladly do a little quick tutorial. And next Monday when we come back, I'll play the tutorial so you guys can see the Photoshop steps. But what I would do, the first texture that came to mind for me, I have an image, and I've used it for several of my images to add texture to a background. It's a picture of a chalkboard, like in a grade school, chalkboard, okay? But it's got a very kind of interesting texture to it because it's one of those chalkboards where it's been written on and erased and written on and erased many, many, many times. By adding that in Photoshop as a layer over top and then switching your blend modes without actually doing it, I would guess somewhere probably either in overlay or soft light, one of those in there, and then just masking out your sun, which you could literally do it with a layer mask and then draw it out. I think that it would make your background a lot more interesting. It would add a little bit of, for lack of a better phrase, I guess a little bit of grittiness to the shot. But all in all, I got to tell you straight up, Brett, great job. I think this was Brett's first post in my group, if I'm not mistaken. And, really, really good job. Congratulations. Okay? All right, gang. So just really quick here, let me switch back. If you do have questions tonight, make sure that you are either posting them here in the chat, or my buddy Chad is going to give you a link in just a moment that if you want me to answer the question, use that link or post the question in the chat. I will do my best if we have enough time. It's going to be tight tonight because we've got Manny's interview and we've still got a bunch of good pictures, but I'll try to answer a couple of your questions at the end. Certainly, if you have a question that you just absolutely want to make sure that you get answered tonight, let me switch my screen over. Down in the bottom left-hand corner is that little $sign down there. If you hit that $sign and you do a super chat, which requires a donation of anything from $1 on up, I will answer your question even if I have to stay late and we extend the time, which normally winds up happening anyway, but I will definitely answer any and all super chat questions. Okay, so before I jump into the next picture, we're going to try something that's a little bit different, and I've got a bunch more of these coming, these interviews. What I wanted to do, and Manny was gracious enough to be my first guinea pig. He's the first one that I've tried this with. I wanted to reach out to other photographers that you folks know, and also photographers that you folks have not heard of before at all. But I wanted to talk to them not about the usual kind of interview questions, but more about the hows and the whys, kind of the thinking process, the thought process behind it. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with Manny right away is because Manny is a photographer that, number one, takes a lot of pictures wide open. Number two, he uses high-speed sync a lot. And he takes great images. So I fully realize that along the way, somewhere, people have gotten this idea that I hate shooting wide open and that I hate using high-speed sync, which is grossly wrong. I hate when people shoot wide open and then the eyes are out of focus or one eye is out of focus, yes. And I hate when people use high-speed sync and don't really know why they're using it or how they're using it and essentially use it for something that they could have done without high-speed sync. So to be clear, those are my issues. So Manny is indeed a guy who shoots a lot of stuff wide open. He shoots a lot of stuff with high-speed sync, and he does it right. He's using techniques that work, and he's using it for the right reasons. So Manny was kind enough to spend some time with me. We recorded this interview a couple of days ago, and I am going to sit back. I am going to let you guys watch. This is a 14-minute interview, and then I'll be back, and we're going to review some more images. Here you go, gang. So for those of you that may not be using Sony and don't know who Manny Ortiz is, I would like to introduce you to the one and only Chicago's Manny Ortiz. Manny, how are you?
I'm great, man. How are you doing? I'm glad to be on the show.
I'm doing great, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me a little bit, talk to the people that are tuning in for TogChat. So, Manny, for those that don't know you, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm based out of Chicago, Illinois, and I specifically, my niche is portraits. So I'm a portrait photographer, and I've slowed down on weddings because I've focused more time on my YouTube channel. So I think that I discovered my passion. It's teaching. Just like you, I want to teach.
That's awesome. And indeed, It's very rewarding. I certainly enjoy it. So, Manny, I always like to get the tough question out of the way first. And part of my goal is to kind of give people a little bit of an insight into how other photographers got started and evolved their careers. So the big question is, why photography? Out of all the things you could have done with your life, what about photography really grabbed you?
Photography it's something that's so satisfying. It's almost addicting. Being able, when you get the shot, that feeling, when you come home and you're excited to put the SD card of the computer, being able to show someone the back of your camera and looking at their reaction. I think that's why I like photographing people. Yeah, it's something it's so addicting, so satisfying about just getting that shot, and that's what it is. That's why I love photography. Simple as that.
I can completely relate to that, believe me. So, Manny, just so people can get an understanding of kind of what your path has been and how you got to where you are today, how did you get started in photography in the first place?
Well, yeah, my story is a little unique. I didn't start off as a photography student in high school or anything like that. I literally just picked up a camera when my wife was pregnant, just so I can capture the milestones. Slowly but surely, I started watching YouTube videos. I came across Kai from Digital Rev, watching him walking around Hong Kong, doing these videos, and it just really caught my interest. And what turned into a hobby slowly turned into a passion. And I've been extremely passionate about photography since then.
So when you first got started, what were some of the big hurdles or the big struggles that you found you had to overcome, from a learning process?
Aside from learning the technical aspect of photography, which is something that, I picked up fairly quickly, like, the camera settings. When I learned the camera settings is when I learned flash. So I kind of did double, and a lot of trial and error. I took a lot of photos of my wife, obviously, because I photograph her still. My initial problem in photography was my social communication, my social anxiety that I had to overcome. Because as a photographer, you have to be social. If you want to make money doing photography, you have to become somewhat social so you can communicate with people. How am I supposed to make someone comfortable when I'm not comfortable myself? So It's almost like overcoming my socially just awkwardness was my biggest problem in photography when I first started.
So that's awesome. Not only did you have to overcome that, but you took it to the extreme and decided to do videos and show them to the whole world. That's great, man. That's really awesome. Here's another tough question. Hopefully not as tough as the first one. Going forward with your career, if you could only do like one kind of photography, like you had to pick, you only had one option, what would it be? I mean, you've done the weddings, you've done engagements, you do portraits. What's that one thing that you can't live without?
Portraits. People.
Portraits. Why?
I did some street photography yesterday, trying to do something a little different, step out of my comfort zone. And I was talking to the other Sony ambassador that I was with, and I told him, like, the reason why I like shooting people is because I can show someone, like, hey, look what I just made, look what I just did here, look what I just did. And to see their reaction, to see how I made them look, that's instant gratification. Versus when I'm doing other kinds of photography, I don't get that instant gratification. I like working with people. I like making people look good. I like that that instant feedback that I can get from them. I just really get a high from it, and it just makes me want to continue,
Listen, gang, I've asked Manny if he would share 5 of his photos with us that allow him, just like I try to do, to kind of teach some little nuggets, some things that maybe some hurdles he's had to overcome, or some experiments that he did that really played out really well. So Manny's been kind enough to send along 5 photos for us to look at. And the first one, a lot of you guys may have seen. This is, I know from a video that he did on YouTube, it's his wife Diana in the snow, sitting on a bench. So Manny, tell me about this shot. I mean, I've seen the video, but I know that there's a lot that went into this shoot for you.
Yeah, this was a really, really tough shot, simply because I don't have any assistants. So I ran a 2-light setup. One light was in the back, one light was in the front at a 45-degree angle. And I covered the lights. It was snowing. I mean, there was a blizzard in Chicago. And I covered the lights with plastic bags, grocery bags, controlling the power of the lights with holding an umbrella with one hand, holding my camera in the other hand with an 85 millimeter where it's front heavy. So my wrists are burning. I'm changing the settings with one hand. I mean, it had so many challenges to try to get this shot. And then the focusing, have you ever shot in snow? The focusing has, especially when you're far back from the model, it'll focus on the snow, and I couldn't manual focus because I'm holding an umbrella. That's why I'm so proud of this shot, because it was so tough to get. We were going to do an urban photo shoot that day, and I love the look of the bridge. My 85 millimeters tends to stick on my camera. I don't like shooting with wider lenses. And quickly, I learned that, I want to capture the environment. I love symmetry. And there was very nice symmetrical lines on the bridge. And so, I said, I got to give my 85 a break. I got to switch to my 55, which was collecting dust. So I put my 55 on, and I like shooting low for that dramatic angle, kind of elongating the model, making them look taller. And it worked. Everything that I do on the norm, it worked so well here, especially with a 55, where I can capture the symmetrical lines and just really, it's a dramatic angle, and it elongates the model and makes her look taller. She's only 5'4", but she looks a lot taller in the photo, and that was one of my objects, when taking that photo.
Manny, another shot that you shared with us was a black and white shot of your wife. who, by the way, I have to say, I think both myself and many of your subscribers on YouTube are very jealous that you have such a subject so readily available. So you're very lucky. And even though I do realize, since I work with a lot of models, and you've even shown a little bit in your videos, they can all be divas sometimes. Still, I don't think we have too much sympathy for you there. So you're very fortunate. So
you should though.
Tell us about this shot.
Yeah, I was actually not at this area. I was in another area doing a tutorial, natural light versus off-camera flash. And the sunset was so beautiful, I had to go to the pond area. I'm like, you know what? We have to go capture this sunset. So we went over there. I had a little 22-inch beauty dish with me. And I love reflections. You know, that's another thing I love. I love reflections. So there was really nice reflections off the water. And I had a 85 again on my camera. And I said, you know, I got to go wider here. And a rare moment, I used a 35 millimeter. I usually don't use a 35 millimeter for portraiture. But when you have a scene like this, when you have this beautiful, you know, water behind her and a sunset, I shot with a 35 and I shot it at 1.4. So a lot of people are like, how could you do that? Well, it's high speed sync. That is why I shoot high speed sync. So I shot high speed sync. I put the beauty dish to her left, angling down. And I do that to show off her features. So it sculpts her face. And I'm really happy with how the shot came out, because it's really moody, and I love the mood that it gives.
So that's an awesome shot. I love that black and white shot, Manny. So the next one you sent along is a shot of your wife looks like a sunset shot with the sun behind her, kind of streaming through her hair. Tell us about that one.
This shot, I'm super proud of this shot because I took it with a point and shoot camera, the Sony RX100 Mark V. You know, if you don't know, it only has a 1 inch sensor. You know, so you're really limited here with your depth of field. And as you know, I like to shoot wide open most of the time. I mean, obviously, depending on my distance from the model. But
and by the way, not to interrupt you, it's totally cool to shoot wide open as long as you get the important stuff in focus, which you do. So it's all good.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. So I was shooting with the point and shoot camera here, and I'm really proud of this portrait because I think I captured it really well. I shot through a Westcott Omega reflector to give some bounce, because obviously these cameras don't have the greatest dynamic range. So I shot through this reflector, and I am so happy with how this portrait came out. Her expression obviously is just amazing. This is actually one of my favorite portraits, and the fact that I shot it with a point and shoot just really puts it at the top for me.
That's awesome. And it just goes to show you it's not always all about the gear. So that's excellent. Definitely. So the last one that you sent us is more of a studio portrait of your wife. And I believe I've also seen this in one of your videos. Absolutely gorgeous light to this. So tell us about this one.
Love it. Yeah, this is my first time ever using an LED panel as my main light. It definitely had some challenges. The LED light was a lot softer. It was like a 25-inch disc of just soft light. And I'm usually in studio, I'm usually using more punchy light, like a beauty dish, where it gives you much more contrast. Well, this light there wasn't much contrast. It was just a flood of soft light. My issue was in post, to really give the face dimension, because there were no shadows on her face, especially when I had a reflector under her. And then you see the backlight. I put a speed light back there to give her that nice glow and separate her from the background. So like I said, the retouching was the big problem here. A good dose of dodge and burn, which I think everyone needs to learn if you like to do portraits. I gave her a really nice dose of dodge and burn, and it turned out beautifully. That's why I'm really proud of this shot, because I know that when it came out of camera, it was super soft. There was no contrast on her face, and I made it work.
That's great. What kind of LED panel were you working with? Was it a manufactured one, or is it something that you made?
Yeah, Photo Diox sent me this new flapjack LED panel to see what I can do with it. And I think I got some pretty good shots with it. Obviously an LED panel is different from using strobes. It's using, especially at such a large size of a light, an LED panel where it's touted as soft light, it's going to give you really soft, non-contrasty light. So,
That's awesome. So, Manny, I always close with this one important question. What I'm looking for from you is, what one piece of advice would you share with a new or a young photographer who wants to be the next Manny Ortiz?
I would say just to never give up, because I've come a long way in my photography. It's not only about the photography aspect, it's about the person that you are. I've always been an introvert my entire life. I've always had stuttering problems in my life since I was a kid. I've had many bad experiences in photo shoots where it's just completely just awkward because I didn't know how to socialize with people. And I think other people can relate, and just know that you're not the only one dealing with this, because I literally had to take myself out of my comfort zone time after time after time after time, because I know that I had such a passion for photography. I had to overcome this. I had to overcome this to become a better photographer. And I did. And I'm on YouTube now. Like, who would have thought? You know what I mean? Like, I can barely have a conversation with someone, and now I'm on YouTube, which is crazy. It just goes to show that anyone can do this. You just never give up. You're gonna go through you're gonna have some problems there, but you just never give up, and just keep working at it. If you really love what you do, you're gonna do it. You're gonna make it happen. So,
Manny, that's awesome advice for anyone, and I really appreciate you sharing that story. So listen, gang, it's been great having Manny here. For those of you especially that are not familiar with him or have not seen his YouTube channel, make sure you check out the description below the video. I've got the links to his YouTube channel, to his website. I know he has a really cool Instagram profile too, so I'll put that link in there. I hope you'll check him out. And Manny, again, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, and we'll talk again soon.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.
Hey gang, so there you have it. Chicago's Manny Ortiz. And of course, a lot of you already know Manny is a fellow YouTuber. And I think a lot of you will actually be pretty surprised to hear a little bit of his story. In fact, interestingly enough, I've got a question waiting from earlier tonight that has to do with dealing with social anxiety and things like that. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, hopefully give you guys some additional tips to what Manny has suggested, but I think honestly he pretty much nailed it. This is the first in what I hope will be a long run of additional interviews that I'm going to be doing for you guys. Like I mentioned earlier, some are going to be photographers that you've heard of before. Some are going to be photographers that don't have a YouTube channel, they don't have a nationally known presence, but they are photographers that I've encountered throughout my career that I have tremendous respect for and want to be able to share some of their experience and their knowledge base with all of you. So let's get back into our photo reviews, okay? So next up, I've got a picture from Joe Cramer in Portland, Oregon, okay? Now, this is an interesting shot, and I wanted to be able to discuss it because while I don't think it turned out quite the way Joe had hoped, and I think it's not ideally the way I would have approached this, there's some excellent learning points here. So I hope you'll bear with me, and let me walk through this shot. So all of your stats are in the upper left-hand corner there. You can see all the camera information. So as Joe explains it, this shot came about. He was walking through the mall looking at the photography that the stores use in their windows and on their posters. And he was looking at the prices, of course, that women are paying for clothing, and was really getting a little bit stressed about that. And he had an idea. Heck, I could put a model in a trash bag for, pennies and do a very similar shot. And I think a lot of us may have potentially had that same shot, same idea along the way, but didn't have the guts to go try it. So I will give Joe a lot of credit for, giving it a shot here. So he had a model lined up to do a shoot. He talked to her about the idea. She agreed to do it as long as he would at least let her wear shoes in the shot. So originally, as Joe gives me the background here, he had planned to do a fitness shoot with this model. So she had shown up with no makeup, which I don't know that even with a fitness shoot I would have used no makeup. She had her hair pulled back. He decided to go with a white backdrop, no makeup, straight hair, the trash bag, and just the girl. So essentially he was trying to, as in his words, trying to apply the kiss it principle, the Keep it simple, stupid, okay? So for lighting, he did 2 speed lights set on quarter power. They were in large soft boxes at about 60 degrees, so that's on either side. He did some minor Lightroom adjustments, did some minor skin retouching in Lightroom. Let's see, the blinding of the flash. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. The obvious problem that he ran into here is that he felt where he struggled with his shot is that he was connecting more with his equipment than he was with his subject. Not the clothes, not the setting, not her, his equipment. So what he really obviously wants to work on is suggestions on how to improve that, and also how to keep the background simple, but not necessarily this simple. So that being said, Joe, my thoughts. I think the idea of using the trash bag, it's been done before, and that's not bad. So I will give you credit for being gutsy enough to approach that idea. I will say that for me, I think that you would be better off to have this young lady standing up. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. And the reason I say that is, since it's a fashion shot, by your definition, fashion shot, you're rarely going to put a model on the ground seated if you're doing a fashion shot, because you are not going to be able to show off the outfit that way. And so I do think that there's some value to going ahead and doing this type of a shot standing up. Plus, we get a better sense of your subject's shape, build, etc. Okay? In terms of applying the kiss it principle, I don't think this is actually how I encourage people to use the kiss it principle, meaning I think you oversimplified here. I'm not going to lie, if it was me and I was doing the trash bag thing, a couple of things would have to be different. The model would absolutely have to be standing up, number one. Number two, the lighting would have to be much more dramatic. And number three, I'd prefer to actually work outside, like near a trash dump or a dumpster or graffiti or something where I had some elements that really made the model completely out of place. Because in this particular situation, the model's not out of place, the bag's out of place. And I think what I would have tried to do is be to tie this element of the garbage concept together with the background, with the setting, with the lighting and all the drama, and then the model is the part that stands out. So, that being said, I want to challenge you, Joe. I'm hoping that you're going to go back and try this again. And even if you choose to do it in the studio, that's fine. I'm not sure that I would do white. In fact, for the sake of using the kiss it principle and being able to bring some drama in, I think it would be really interesting if you did it on black. And that way, what stands out in the shot is not the bag, it's not the background, definitely not the shoes, it's the model. I would definitely encourage you, use a makeup artist, and certainly do not have her hair pulled back. So even for a photo shoot that is about fitness, to be clear, I would never have a model come with no makeup, ever. Model, no makeup, equals bad pictures, period. Just doesn't work, okay? So certainly for the sake of a fitness picture, you are not going to use lots of color and big eyelashes and dramatic, mascara and bright lips. No. But you are still going to use makeup to make a person look their best. That's the whole point behind makeup, is to make a person look their best. So if we're doing a fitness shot, we're using less makeup than we are if we're doing like a dramatic glamour shot or a beauty shot. And I honestly think a great piece to add to this would be to take her hair and just tease the crap out of it so that it's just chaotic and messy and sloppy. Not in her face. I still want the face clean, but all here, just big and all over the place. So, I love your idea. I have to be honest with you, I think that you fell way short in this execution of it, and by your own comments, you kind of indicated that. One last thing that I do want to point out to you so that you can learn from it, and I really do, Joe, I hope that you'll go back and try this again and make some tweaks to it. And even if you don't take my tweaks and my suggestions, go back and work this idea. You guys have all seen my video, or at least hopefully you've all seen my video called Work the Shot. And I explained in that video, you don't always get it first time out. Sometimes you need to take an idea and you need to go back and you need to shoot it again. And it may be a different model. It may be different lighting, different background, different camera angle, any number of different possibilities. But you've got to be willing, if you want to do great work, you've got to be willing to keep going back and working at it until you can get it to where you want it. So the one thing, if I take this image just as is, so again, I don't want to be overly critical of details in this image because even you have kind of established you didn't quite hit where you wanted to hit. That's cool. Her head tilt. Her head tilt is very awkward to me. It's just too much. And that in and of itself is a distraction. So I'm pointing that out to you so that as you go forward, please be aware of that. And then, you've got the big head tilt here. Then we've got these nice long legs come down and we've got these really kind of bulky shoes. So they're a distraction. So my advice to you, either make the shot about the outfit or make the shot about the girl in contrast to the outfit. But this is kind of too much of almost like, it looks almost like it's supposed to be kind of like a glamour shot type thing, and obviously it's not really glamorous. And then the other thing, depending on your model's build, once you stand her up, you might want to try doing some shaping with the bag, possibly clipping it around the waist, just so you still get a sense of what the girl looks like. Understand that the idea of just making it all bulky and big may actually really detract from the girl completely. So again, it's all finding that balance. But that is where I would encourage you to go with it. I think that you've got a lot of potential in this idea. So I am hoping that you will try it out. And I just want to point out, I'm seeing some really great comments about the Manny interview. So first of all, gang, don't thank me, thank Manny. I am thrilled that he was going to do this. You guys know I'm committed to trying to bring you as much information about how am I. It's not, my conversations are not about Joe being right. My conversations are about, hey, my experience has taught me this. And I'm trying to help you with my experience to not make a lot of mistakes. So it's important to me to bring you folks, other photographers, other opinions, other approaches to photography, so that you can see that even when there are differing techniques, for instance, I rarely shoot at 1.8. I don't use high-speed sync at all. But my approach to photography and my reasons and my motivations and my attention to detail are really no different than Manny's and many other photographers. So there will be more interviews to come. So I'm really thrilled that you guys enjoyed that. I promise you there's going to be more. I've already talked to a couple people. I've got 2 more interviews set up and I'm in the process of setting up quite a few more. So there will definitely be more for me to share with you in the near future, okay? And also the links, of course, we posted the links to both Manny's YouTube channel and his website in the chat window here. And also, when you're done the video, if you refresh the video in your browser, both of those links are in the description below the video. But I added them during the interview, so if you're watching it right now, they're not there. But once you refresh the page, they'll be there, okay? All right, so we're gonna go back to another picture. So this shot is from Myles Stephens. Myles is in Spokane, Washington, okay? This is a photograph of Myles' wife, so very lucky man. All of your stats are in the upper left-hand corner there. And Carl Haar, I did see your message about when you go to full screen, you get a Wix ad over the person's name on top left. Sorry, Carl. There's really no other place where I can put that name without it requiring me to spend about another 2 hours in prep for every TogChat. So I don't mean to sound cocky about it, but my advice to you is don't go full screen, okay? So this was Myles' first post in the group. He's brand new to photography. He's only been shooting for about 5 months, and he is putting a lot of time and effort into learning, and I would have to say that he's doing a great job here. He took this photo because he wanted to practice backlit shooting, and I thought this would be an appropriate one also to kind of show, since we just had Manny Ortiz here and showed a couple of his backlit images, which he does quite a bit of. So this was, especially considering that, you know, Myles is in Spokane, Washington, this was his kind of first chance to get outside after the winter, get some outdoor shooting in. So he was really looking to kind of work on the idea of getting the glow, getting some of the yellow flowers, get some nice highlights. Part of the reason for doing this photo is that he wants to be able to use it to promote not only his portrait work, but also potentially senior portraits. Because obviously one of the luxuries here is his wife looks very young. So this is something that he's hoping he can use from a business standpoint moving forward. Some of the things he learned, which are very important. Oftentimes when you're doing shots like this in the middle of fields with wildflowers, it's a really good idea to take some bug repellent, because he found that there were lots of mosquitoes and bugs, not only that were, chasing him and his wife and biting, but also winding up in the shot and requiring retouching later. He also joked he learned that it's not a good idea to smash a mosquito on a white dress because it leaves a blood stain, which, seems like an obvious thing until you make that mistake out of frustration, and then you've got a blood stain on a dress to deal with. So he did his editing in Photoshop, all the basic stuff: white balance, exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks. He did make some color adjustments and some curves, and did a little bit of frequency separation. And originally her nails were blue, and he changed them to purple. So overall, Myles, I love where you are going with this shot. And number one, you're very fortunate, kind of like Manny, you've got a beautiful wife to work with who photographs incredibly well. So I expect to see you doing much more practice with her. Certainly for the purpose of using this image for a senior portrait advertisement, I would definitely retouch out the wedding band. And that's actually, it's a good little piece of practice for you. So, in a perfect scenario, you remember to have your wife remove it before you leave the house. That way, of course, there's no chance of losing that ring in a field somewhere. You don't want to be at fault for that. But that's actually a fairly easy retouch to remove it. So my challenge to you is, for practice, using the healing tool and the clone stamp. You're going to use those two tools, the healing brush and the clone stamp. You're going to use those two tools. I want to see you remove the ring. As far as the fingernails go, this is the perfect example where really no color is a good color. I do agree that you made the right decision to go with the magenta, with the purple, because there are more magentas in the scene. I think that's definitely better than blue. But anyway it goes, it's more color than you want in that spot. Also, Myles, had posted in the group as a follow-up, someone had asked about the hair clip. And indeed, Myles, you had the right idea. It should be removed. I totally understand that she was potentially wearing it. And depending on what direction your wife's looking, how she tilts her head, in some cases you may not even see that clip. But given that it's backlit and just the way her head's tilted, of course, the sun lit it up. The good part is the clone stamp will clear that clip out very, very easily. So that's definitely something to be removed. The things that I would push back on you here, Myles, and this is all stuff that's minor in and of itself, but it will have a big impact on the final outcome of your shot. So I find overall it's a little bit flat. There's a lot of really gorgeous color in here. So now, of course, if you look at the way Manny does a lot of his backlit shots, he does one of two things. He either uses like the Westcott Apollo reflector that's got the hole cut out in the middle, where you basically shoot through the hole in the reflector so you get some fill back on your subject, which would have made a big difference in here. Because I will tell you that in a shot like this, using frequency separation, honestly, I think it's not helping you that much, because you don't have a lot of contrast in the face and the eyes are down. To me, it's a step that you're really not gaining anything from here, okay? But I'm finding the colors to be a little flat. So that being said, if you had more fill back in, either by using a fill flash, preferably on a softbox or some type of diffuser, or by using a reflector, and your wife is beautiful, I would really, really, really love to see her eyes. If you don't want her looking at the camera, that's fine. But if you guys can imagine for a moment, the way she's looking down with her eyes closed, we have no sense of her eyes. So she could be looking down, but if you instruct her to look out about 15 feet in front of her so her eyes are up, you're going from kind of this to this. And it's going to hold attention much more than with the eyes closed. And then the last thing, and this is one that just simply requires practice, Myles, and it's not your wife's fault. This is on you, not her. Be careful with the hands, okay? So I want you to make sure that that's something that you are paying close attention to with regards to doing shots like this, the angles. A woman's body is all about curves. Okay, so let's make sure that we understand that. Always look for soft things. If this hand was brought more to the front, it becomes softer. With this hand, extend the fingers and let her twirl the hair in it so that we're getting kind of the back of the hand soft this way, and it's going to look much more elegant instead of having the fingers chop off. So these are little details, but they're the kind of details that are going to take your shot to the next level, okay? So this is something, Swad, thank you so much. I will get to your question in just a moment, I promise you. Thank you for that super chat. So, and I see that we have a couple folks that are in here that are willing to do some consulting regarding a question about cameras. I will tell you out of respect, if you choose to consult on that question, I will remove you from the chat window. If you want to go teach, but otherwise, if you're here, I would ask your respect and watch the show. Because this is what we're talking about, and I will do my best to get to Blast the Beats question at the end of the evening. Thank you for that respect. Okay, so Myles, great job. Get back out in the field, work with your wife some more. Understand that from the standpoint of the colors, if you pull that vibrance up, you can see, you know, we get a little bit of magenta here now, but we can come back down and we can pull that magenta out and really, you know, work with those colors, get those colors to pop, because I think this picture is completely worth it. Okay? All right, so we've got a super chat question here, and that is, I shoot business and corporate headshots, and I'm working on booking more creative portrait assignments. Can I talk more specifically about what makes an effective actor headshot or versus a model headshot? Okay, so let me say one thing. First of all, it's just one word that you kind of tossed in there that I want to make sure we're being clear on, and that is the word creative portrait assignments. I wouldn't necessarily call a headshot or a modeling portfolio shot creative, and here's why. The creativity in a actor's headshot or a modeling headshot should not be the visual creativity. It absolutely shouldn't. Now, there are some photographers who would like to argue with that, but the science proves otherwise. And the application in terms of models walking into agencies and getting signed for work, and actors, the same thing, proves otherwise. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm right, okay? But here's the explanation. When you photograph an actress or an actor or a model for their portfolio or for their headshot, the finished picture is not about you. It is not about your creativity. Your creativity is not going to get them work. Their skills as an actor or actress, their skills and ability as a model, that's what gets them work. So your job is to not be creative. Your job is to be technically proficient as a photographer and to be creative with your ability to help them emote and show lots of personality. So for the actor's headshot, you need to come up with a shot where that person looks like that guy or looks like that girl. Like isn't that the guy we saw in that movie? Like, he totally looks like he should be in a movie. That's what every great actor's headshot should look like. It should have personality. They should look like somebody you've seen in a movie. As far as a modeling portfolio, understand that the idea behind a modeling portfolio is not to have a bunch of pretty pictures of a model. Nobody cares. When the model walks into their office, they can see that she's pretty. They can see she's got a nice figure. They can see all that. Advertising is extremely expensive. So as an example, if I'm photographing a model who's going to model in Philadelphia, which is near me, if that model is over the age of 18, I am going to photograph that model in some type of a medical outfit. Scrubs like a nurse, maybe a jacket, a white lab coat like a doctor, or even in a pharmaceutical type scenario like they're a pharmaceutical researcher. The reason I'm going to do that is Philadelphia happens to be the largest medical advertising market in the United States. So in the city of Philadelphia, for someone that wants to model, it's more important for them to have a picture of themselves dressed as a nurse or a medical professional than it is to have a bikini picture. Everybody takes the bikini picture, but what company is going to come to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to shoot a swimwear catalog? They're not. Now, you would think that a model could have a bunch of pretty pictures, in casual clothing or creative clothing. And somebody could look at her pictures and say, wow, you know, if we put her in scrubs and if we put her hair back in a ponytail, she'd look good as a nurse. And while they may be able to do that, they don't want to do that because there's a lot of money on the line. So they'd much rather see the picture that says, oh my God, she's perfect. She's exactly what we're looking for as a nurse. So I think number one, you know, what I would say to you to get right to your point and to concise, what makes an effective actor's headshot? The person should look attractive. The person should look like they have personality. No cheese. Cheese is never good. Period. And the backgrounds should be simple, clean. In fact, I have a picture coming up in just a moment, since we're going to run over a few minutes, that's an acting headshot that's on a brown background. And while it's not bad, the brown background is not really ideal, okay? But most importantly, understand that acting headshots, modeling portfolio shots are not about the photographer. It's not about the clothes. It's not about the makeup. It's not about the hair. All of that should disappear. We need to see the personality of the subject. Take creativity out of the equation. What you have to be creative with is your psychology of how you work with that subject and how you motivate them to give you the kind of personality that you're after. And I will tell you, Swad, my website here, I'm going to type it in here because I don't have a link for Chad. Check out this website. This is mine. And at that website, you will find some really good information. The website that I just put in the chat room there, gang, it's modelingtip.com. So this website is geared towards models, but there's a lot of information in there for models about what makes a good modeling portfolio, what kind of pictures they should have in their portfolio, all that kind of stuff. So make sure you check that out and read it. Even though you're a photographer, the information that you find there will help you in understanding what's going to be most beneficial and what they need. So I hope that helps you out, okay? So I want to go back to our next shot here. We've got an adorable picture. So this comes to us from Karsten in Hamburg, Germany. So as he explains, he's actually a German who's living in Russia for the next year. And apparently in the beginning of May every year, the Russians have a big holiday that's about the end of the war with Germany. So he was asked to take part in an organized shoot for little kids. And you know, people dress up and all that kind of stuff. So he spent the day doing these photos. So he used a 60 by 90 centimeter softbox with an AD200, which is a bare bulb, that new Godox bare bulb strobe, set it at 1/8 power to create window catch light. At least, you know, as he explains it, that was the idea that he was going after, was to get kind of that window catch light thing. The softbox was above her at a distance of about 1.5 meters and aiming down. He did all his post in Lightroom, no cropping, just the white balance, and actually just the white balance. So he apologized to me in the post because he figured I was going to complain about the flyaway hairs. I'll address the flyaway hairs in a moment. And let's see, I think there was one other thing here. Oh, and then the other thing he would do, he's got a little branch over on the left-hand side that he said he would definitely, you know, remove that the next time. So indeed, when this photograph was posted in my Facebook group, a couple people actually started pointing out the little earring that the little girl has, started talking about the flyaway hairs and all that kind of stuff. I got to say, and to be clear, none of that bothers me. It's a little kid. Her hair's supposed to be messy. The earring, yeah, in a perfect world, I would say maybe lose the earring, but it's not a distraction here. I do agree that the pre-wrench on camera left should be gone, but that's something, Karsten, if you have access to Photoshop in addition to Lightroom, you could remove that in a heartbeat. That would be removed very, very easily. I think that you did an excellent job with using your softbox, its positioning and everything to make it look like window light. Everything from the catch lights that we are seeing in the little girl's eyes to the position of the catch lights. They're high, but not too high. Kudos. And so for the rest of you, even if this is not your kind of picture, what I love about this shot, and I want you guys to understand this, is here's an example where he has brilliantly, almost perfectly replicated window light using one strobe, one softbox, and part of the key to that is the placement. It's slightly in front of the subject, but not too far. It's not way off to the side to get the heavy shadow. It's at a nice angle, and it's also close enough that you're getting a substantial catch light. the subject is not too far from the background, but far enough, shooting at 2.8, he's able to get nice shallow depth of field. And literally, Karsten, the only thing that I guess I wish you would have done differently, and this is really strictly an opinion. I love the photo. I love it based on the idea that you're going to get Photoshop and learn how to take that tree out. Super, super easy. I would love to see, it took me a while, I didn't realize at first what the foreground was. And then I realized, oh my God, it's an accordion. I would love to see just a little bit more. So the one thing that I'm going to ding you for here is, I believe it was a little bit of an oversight because it's a child and children move around a little bit, but her eye right here is dead center in the frame. So I have a feeling you weren't really composing so much as you put whatever you're focusing on in the center of the frame. So what we have up here, it's not bad or horrible, but we've got kind of wasted space. All the space above her head is doing nothing for the photo. So you could have brought your camera down a little bit more, cropped it a little tighter, and actually showed a little bit more at the bottom. And I think it definitely would have added a little bit more to it, especially, and the reason why I want to see more of the accordion, obviously the accordion is much bigger than the little girl. And she's tiny and she's looking out over it. So with a little bit more of the accordion at the bottom, and I don't mean that you have to see all of the accordion, not at all. But just to have a little bit more at the bottom, it's going to make the accordion a little bit more imposing, and it adds that feeling of her kind of peeking out over the top of the accordion. But all in all, great job, and really great job with recreating that window light. I think you did a wonderful job of that, okay? Okay, let's get in one more shot tonight, and then I'll do a real quick Q&A, try and knock out a couple questions here. I'm committed to not going too far over tonight. So this is a shot from Richard in New Mexico. All your stats are up there on camera left. So he shot this on a Savage Universal paper background, which is cocoa color. He used a Flashpoint Rove Light 600B in a 47-inch Paul Buff Octabox on camera left. And we can see that it's kind of just barely camera left. It's not over too far because we've just got some very nice subtle shading here. We don't have any harsh shadows. He had a rim light, which is a Yang speed light in a 26-inch Westcott Rapid Box on camera right behind the model. We can barely get a sense of that here along her shoulder. We can see there's ever so slight bit of rim light coming in there, but just barely. And then he had a 42-inch reflector on the model's lap that he was using for a little bit of fill underneath her chin. He took the shot because she wanted a headshot to submit for a role in a movie that is going to be filming in her area. And she also has her own insurance agency, and so she wanted to use these for kind of business and advertising. The goal was to create a sophisticated looking headshot. He believes he achieved the goals. He's really satisfied with the results. If he could change anything about the shoot, it would be that he wishes he would have tried to use at least a third light to light the backdrop to create a bit more separation. Okay, so the reason why I want to talk about this is, I would say that Richard, all in all, photographically, he did a really nice job with the light here. And honestly, I'm not sure that I would light that backdrop. I love the chocolate color of the shot. I would actually argue that your rim light over here could be maybe just a smidge, and I really mean a smidge brighter, not a lot brighter. I don't want to see a big white streak down the side of her, but just ever so slight. But I'm not suggesting that for the purpose of separation. I'm suggesting it simply for the purpose of an accent. I'm going to be really picky for the rest of this stuff, Richard. I would love to see this hair off of her eye. It's too close. The shadow's cutting into the corner of her eye. I am all about the eyes. And especially for an acting headshot, super, super, super important that we get a clear look at the shape of the person's face and their eyes. Super important. Now, one last thing before I get into the acting headshot and the business headshot part. The jewelry, gotta go. It's gotta go, number one, because science says it's gotta go. It's a distraction. And especially since it's just kind of creeping out there, it's definitely a distraction. Number two, be careful about creases and things like that. You are responsible for that. These creases in her sleeve here, you should retouch those out. Okay, that's a crease that was in her jacket when she got there that shouldn't be there. So you ultimately should either iron or steam that before you shoot, or you've got to retouch it out. These darker creases up here really should go, okay? But here are the things that I want to point out to you with regards to headshots for actors and even for business shots. So I'll start with the business side. I don't know this young woman. I don't know what her website is, but I have a feeling if I simply apply some statistics here, that her website does not use brown as an accent color. If her website doesn't use brown as an accent color, I'm not so sure that I would use brown as your background color. I have a video on my YouTube channel that is called How to Prepare for a Headshot Sitting. I would encourage you to watch that video. I talk actually about the marketing side of doing headshots and the decisions that you need to make so that you can be sure images are going to fit. Because the other problem that you have, and this is something that a lot of you don't think about. So, you know, Richard, you've got some great lighting going on here, but you've got to work on your details. And many of you need to do this. So let me point out one thing that is a potential killer here. And we're leaving the acting headshot till last. So she's potentially going to use this picture on her website, which means she's also potentially going to use it for social media. Think for a moment about all of your social media profiles, gang. All of them. Which side of the profile is the profile picture? It's on the left. That means in this particular shot, her body is facing off the page. And in most websites, on the About page, and not everyone, so I'm throwing out some statistics here. Hopefully, that's not the case in her website. But most websites, the profile picture on the About page is on the left side of the page. So for a profile picture for a website and for business use, you really should have the subject going the other way as much as possible. Certainly, if there is an issue with eye size and one eye is dramatically bigger and you have to go the other way, okay, then you're stuck. But in this young lady's case, if you've watched my video on how to tell the good side, her good side is her right side, the camera left side. So it actually would have been better to have her facing in the opposite direction. Okay? So it's something I hope that all of you are aware of, because I get a lot of pictures that are posted, oh, I did this for so-and-so's social media. And the person's facing off the page. That's not good design at all. So this is that piece where you have to understand, how are my pictures being used and how does it all fit together? So that's where you benefit there. The next thing with regard to the acting headshot, so for the acting headshot, the jewelry is an absolute no-go. And for the acting headshot, I would have photographed her on a white background or a really, really light gray, but I would have taken the brown out. And a big part of that is simply because brown is not a color that everybody likes. Brown is a color that actually has meanings to it. White is simple, it's clear, it's pure, it doesn't interfere. If you ever do a Google search on the meanings behind different colors and the psychological science behind that, it's why you'll learn very quickly why even somebody like Peter Hurley does most of his acting headshots on a white background, etc. Okay, so again, all things for you to think about. Overall, this lighting is very, very sweet. I like where you're headed with it, but I would really like to see you kind of refine kind of the details of what's, you know, in front of the camera. And then the only other thing that I will kind of throw in here, I don't talk about this often, but it's something that's kind of worth pointing out. And actually somebody just questioned it in the chat window as well, so I will address it. I was going to mention it. I'm not sure why you shot this at ISO 400. I'm not familiar with what the base ISO of the Canon 5D Mark III is, but I'm confident it's not 400. It's probably 100 or less. There's really nothing to be gained here. And the same with the 1/125th of a second shutter speed. There's nothing to be gained there. In fact, there's things to be lost. So as a rule, when you're doing studio shooting like this, gang, lowest ISO, fastest shutter speed that your camera will allow, and still sync with flash. So in that case, it's going to be you know, either 1/60th or 200th or 250th of a second, depending on that camera model. But yeah, I would definitely encourage you to go with that. And I believe you told me that you had your strobe dialed down a little bit. So actually, you didn't give me the flash power. So even if the flash was at full power and you drop down to ISO 200, you'd be shooting at 5.6, which is still going to be enough depth of field, etc. There's a question here, would black and white work better for an acting headshot? Rarely in today's world. There was a time where you could get away with both, and then of course prior to that there was a time where all acting headshots were black and white. In today's world, color is where it's at, gang. Okay, so Richard, I hope you don't think I was being too tough on you there. I love where you're at with your lighting. You've got a beautiful subject. Even if this young woman is willing to get back in front of your camera again, maybe to do some modeling stuff. Most people that want to be actors also want to do some modeling, and I realize she may not be looking to do it full time since she's, clearly got a career going on. But she's definitely a beautiful subject. So I would encourage you to try and photograph her again if you can. Okay. All right, gang. So let's just get just a couple of questions here. Kyla asked, if I have carpet in my home studio, what is a good substitute? Well, Kyle, that depends on whether or not you're willing to spend money and have the carpet removed. If all you have is carpet and you don't want to spend money to remove it, you simply want to get something to put down over the carpet if you're going to use paper backdrops. So you can use like a sheet of plywood and paint it. There's all kinds of materials that you could use. If you are looking to remove the carpet and do something, there's a couple ways you could go. You could simply go with, depending on what's under the carpet, you could go with a concrete floor, or you could go with a wooden floor and paint it, fill the gaps and paint it. You could go with like a laminate wood flooring, kind of like what I have in my studio. In previous studios, I have had the floor gray, 18% neutral gray. In one case, it was concrete. In another case, it was a wood floor that I painted with several layers and put a gloss coat over top. When I built the studio in this house, I decided to try the laminate flooring. If I were to build another studio, which, gosh, I hope I don't have to do that anytime soon, but if I were, I would go back to the gray floor. I don't hate the laminate flooring. I want to be clear. And there are times when I'm able to use it as part of my shot. But all in all, I like having the all gray so that I can throw color at it, and then that floor becomes whatever color I want it to be. So it's much, much more universal. And if I'm really missing the wood floor while I'm working in the gray, I can add that as a texture in post and do it really very, very easily. So that would be my recommendation there. Okay. So let's see here. I got just a couple more questions. Purple Poison. I'm doing my first outdoor portrait shoot with an 85mm f1.2 lens. Any tips? Yeah, don't shoot at f1.2. That's my tip. So James Parrish. I've been shooting on a gray background, but I keep getting a halo effect around the model's head. It seems like your light may be too bright. Well, maybe, James. Unfortunately, you didn't give me any information here about how you're lighting the background and where that light's placed. So, a halo effect could be a couple things. It could be that you're over sharpening your image. So I'd need to see, I know, James, that you're a member of my Facebook group, so I would encourage you, post an image for the purpose of looking for, problem solving and trying to find out, kind of what's wrong and why. And I'll try and help you out there. But without seeing what you're getting and knowing how you're lighting it, it's kind of really hard for me to, to give you that answer. All right, so I gave people a hard time before because they were ready to jump in and start doing all kind of consulting for Blast the Beat TV. So could someone help him? I'm purchasing a Canon 5D Mark III next week. Which lens should I purchase first? I have a budget of around 500 pounds and I don't mind buying secondhand. You're shooting music videos and doing portrait photography. Okay, so, that being said, Blast the Beat TV, I would tell you to try and go with a zoom lens because, shooting music videos and then doing portraits, that's like two completely different ball games. If we go and we start watching music videos, you're going to find the overwhelming majority of them are shot with, and obviously there are tons of exceptions, so I'm saying majority, are shot with wider lenses. But yet portraits should be shot with short to medium length telephoto lenses. So even maybe something like a 24 to 70 millimeter lens, as long as you discipline yourself and shoot your portraits at 70 millimeter, if you dial it back, you're risking distortion. But then you've got a lot more range of optics for working for your music videos. So I would encourage you, if you're just starting out like that, to go with a short zoom, like a 24 to 70. But I will tell you this, number one, if you're shooting music videos, I don't know why you're buying a Canon 5D Mark III. Like, that camera doesn't make a whole lot of sense. if the videos are important to you, and I'm not trashing Canon, folks. Yes, I'm a Nikon user. Yes. I'm not trashing Canon. That's not the best option out there for video. If you're looking for a camera that's going to be really, really awesome going between video and stills, I would actually encourage you to look at Sony's. But I'm not so sure that I would pick Canon as my choice. I think that you could get better bang for your buck looking elsewhere. Now, I'm assuming, since you're asking about lenses, that you don't already own lenses. Certainly if you already owned Canon lenses, well, that's a different story. But I would encourage you maybe to do a little bit more research, okay? Music videos and portraits, two very, very different things. So Blast the Beat, you have a GH4 Panasonic and you want a Canon to shoot videos? God, why? The GH4s are amazing. And by the way, I hate to tell you, even for stills, depending on what you're using your stills for, the GH4 is an amazing camera. So do a little bit more research. If you're going to do the occasional portrait thing, because I want to be clear, certainly for fun, gang, shoot whatever you want to shoot. You can be a videographer, you can be a photographer, you can make music videos, you can shoot models, do whatever you want for fun. If you're looking to make money, Blast the Beat TV, pick one. Either you're a video guy or you're a photographer. Don't make the mistake of being a jack of all trades and a master of none. So again, I would put a little bit more, more thought into that. But so if you're using, see, now you're changing your answer now that I'm giving you a hard time. So now he's telling me he's mostly using the GH4 for video, but he's going to use the Canon for photo. So if you're using the Canon just for photo, then look at the Tokina 100mm lens. On my YouTube channel, there is a video, Blast the Beat TV, so you clearly have not been watching my videos. It's called, What is the Best Lens for Portraits? Watch that video and it tells you all about the Tokina 100mm lens. I just saved you a ton of money because with your 500-pound budget, you'll have 100 pounds left over to go spend on lighting or other accessories. And it's an amazing, amazing lens. It's the lens that I use for all of my portrait work and most of my modeling work. So, but yeah, be careful about trying to find stuff that switches back and forth between both, because Canon's not going to even come close in the ballpark to what you're able to do with that Panasonic for video. So I would keep them both very, very separate if I were you. Okay, so gang, listen, I appreciate it. Shocker, we're 20 minutes over schedule. Like, that never happens, does it? So remember, gang, I will be back here Wednesday night for another Talk Chat. Wednesday night is the Q&A night. In the meantime, I got to ask all you guys to do me a favor. If you're still here and if you've been watching, and if you're not following me on social media, please, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I'm on all of them. Please make sure you follow me. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, guys, please do. I hate to sound like one of those shallow people that's all about the numbers. And while the numbers are nice, let me be completely honest with you. The numbers help me bring you more content. I'm at a point in this whole process where I'm looking at getting sponsors. I'm also looking at getting more photographers to do interviews with me. In fact, some photographers who are some really famous photographers that I've got kind of on the hook here, okay? So, the more people that I'm able to give them exposure to, the more people that I am able to get to participate and help out with products, etc. So please make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, the last piece is, if you haven't done it yet, please hit that thumbs up right underneath the video here. It would be greatly appreciated. So in the meantime, gang, I hope to see you all Wednesday for the Q&A. Make sure that you are doing some shooting. Make sure you go check out Manny Ortiz and his channel, especially if you're a Sony user. You need to go check out Manny Ortiz. And believe me, if we've got a pick, check out Manny Ortiz instead of Jason Lanier, okay? And whatever you do, remember these words. Thanks for watching another live episode of Talk Chat. Now go pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.